Today on NewsWatch, searching for a House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy drops out of the race, and now the GOP is in a state of chaos. We'll explore what's next as Republicans look to replace John Boehner.
This is a community that can't get to a grocery store for about 40 minutes or further because there's so many roads that have been washed out and bridges that have been compromised or completely off the grid.
More cleanup in South Carolina. CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground. See how you can help the community rebuild. And we're sitting down for an interview with Franklin Graham. He's weighing in on everything from the crisis in Syria to the presidential election. It's an exclusive interview you won't want to miss. And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. House Republicans are in chaos after Thursday's political bombshell. The frontrunner for the speakership suddenly withdraws his bid for the post. Now the prospects for electing a new speaker are dimmed. Our Dale Hurd is on this story.
House Republicans are asking who now after Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, the hand-picked successor to Speaker John Boehner, announced he would not seek the post.
I think I shocked some of you, huh? But the one thing I found in talking to everybody, if we are going to unite and be strong, we need a new face to help do that.
The decision came after a closed-door meeting with the same conservatives who would challenge him on the House floor as Speaker. It also came after a letter from North Carolina Representative Walter Jones calling for the next speaker to be above reproach in his or her personal life.
I know what can happen to a party when you don't demand honesty and integrity in your leadership. I've seen it. I know what can happen.
Two candidates for Speaker, Florida's Daniel Webster and Utah's Jason Chaffetz, say they were both shocked by McCarthy's withdrawal.
The conference is going to have to do a lot of deep soul searching, and we'll see what happens.
The House speakership is a grueling, often thankless job, something akin to herding cats, and many of the House's brightest stars simply do not want the job.
My statement stands.
Some are even throwing out the name of former Speaker Newt Gingrich, who is not now a member of Congress. The Constitution does not say the Speaker has to be an elected House member. But the McCarthy withdrawal means John Boehner will have to stay on for now as Speaker. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
All eyes are on South Carolina's low country. Runoff waters from the middle of the state are headed out to sea, and this could wreak more havoc on areas already heavily saturated from days of nonstop rain. Some 250 roads and 100 bridges are damaged and closed, making it difficult for people to get the help they need. Operation Blessing is in Crane Creek, a rural area facing this very challenge.
This is a community that can't get to a grocery store for about 40 minutes or further because there's so many roads that have been washed out and bridges that have been compromised or completely off the grid where they can't get cars through. One lady looked at me and she goes, "I live 5 minutes away from here and it took me 40 minutes to drive here."
Governor Nikki Haley warns areas in the path of the runoff waters could remain flooded for up to 2 weeks. If you'd like to join Operation Blessing's efforts to help the people in the Palmetto State, visit us at ob.org. The family of an unarmed black man shot and killed by a white police officer is receiving a $6.5 million settlement. City officials in North Charleston, South Carolina, approved the payment for Walter Scott's family members Thursday. They say the settlement brings them a sense of closure. In April, a bystander recorded Scott being shot repeatedly in the back as he tried to run from Officer Michael Slager during a traffic stop. Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan is calling for a huge rally Saturday in Washington, D.C. He's calling it Justice or Else, and it comes on the 20th anniversary of what was called the Million Man March. Civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson says it is nothing more than a hate rally, no different than a Ku Klux Klan or skinhead march. He says Farrakhan is responsible for anti-police violence, even calling for 10,000 black men to stalk and kill whites. Peterson is calling on all African Americans to boycott the event and to speak out against racism instead. CBN News is interviewing Reverend Peterson about the rally and what he believes can heal the racial divide in America. Log on to cbnnews.com to see the full story. More Palestinian terrorist attacks in Jerusalem today. A 14-year-old Israeli and a police officer both stabbed in separate incidents. An Israeli stabbed 4 Arabs in the southern city of Dimona. Violence in Israel has been escalating for weeks. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has even declared the Temple Mount off limits to Israeli Knesset members. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has that story.
Prime Minister Netanyahu warned his country that the flames of radical Islam burning throughout the Middle East are also reaching Israel.
We're in the midst of a wave of terrorism. Terrorists that have been incited and who are riven with hate are trying to attack our people, babies, children, men and women, civilians and soldiers.
In just 2 days, Palestinians carried out multiple stabbing attacks in Jerusalem and other cities in Israel and the disputed territories, including 2 nearby here in Jerusalem's Old City. Rock throwing and firebombing cars are regular occurrences, as well as rioters clashing with Israeli soldiers. Netanyahu and other government ministers went on to live television to calm the anxiety.
Israelis are acting with bravery, composure, and determination to neutralize and eliminate the terrorists. This requires extraordinary courage.
Netanyahu blames Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, and the Islamic movement in Israel. He also said the Islamic movement is igniting the ground with lies regarding our policy on the Temple Mount. Earlier, Netanyahu declared the Temple Mount off limits to Knesset members, including Arab MKs, in an effort to calm the situation. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat called on Israelis with gun permits to carry their weapons. Jerusalem schools went on strike because parents are afraid to send their children to school. Many are asking if this violence could be a third intifada. But Palestinian expert Pinkas Inbari says it doesn't matter what it's called.
They are throwing stones, they are killing, they are shooting, they are stabbing. So they are not quiet. So whether it is intifada or not, it does not important.
Overall, Israel wants to deal with troublemakers and not create friction with the entire Palestinian population. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Islamic State terrorists have murdered 3 Syrian Christian hostages. The Syrian Human Rights Network says ISIS shot the Christians in the head on the first day of the Muslim holiday Eid al-Adha. An ISIS video sent out Wednesday appeared to confirm the executions. The Islamic terror group has been holding about 200 Syrian Christians captive since February. Back here in the U.S., the Attorney General of Oklahoma is taking a stand for religious freedom. Scott Pruitt officially told the state it can no longer ban student prayer at school sporting events. He argues a current policy blocking public prayer at playoff events is too broad.
You just can't uniformly and arbitrarily say, we're going to allow all speech except religious speech. And that's why it's overbroad.
Pruitt says because the state allows open announcements in a public forum, then forbidding only religious speech violates the Constitution and students' rights. Meanwhile, a school in Ashdown, Arkansas is coming under fire from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the liberal group threatening a school over prayers by the high school band director, as well as prayers at football games.
We feel like that the freedom of our students to express themselves will hold up in a court of law.
The district superintendent says they broke no laws and student groups will lead the introductions at school events in the future. A school district in Indiana is being sued over a nativity scene performed by students that has been a part of the school's annual Christmas show for decades. The American Civil Liberties Union and the Freedom from Religion Foundation filed the lawsuit on behalf of a student and a parent at the Concord community in Elkhart, Indiana. The Elkhart Truth says the suit contends that the scene violates the Constitution. Coming up, one-on-one with Franklin Graham, what he had to say about Islam, Planned Parenthood, and so much more. The story's next. Franklin Graham is the son of evangelist Billy Graham. He is also a minister and a vocal leader who recently announced the Decision America Tour 2016. It's a call for Christians across the nation to pray and live out biblical principles at home, in public, and at the ballot box. We spoke with Graham about the most pressing political issues of this election for this week's Studio 5. What do we as Christians do when it comes to ISIS and the persecution of Christians we're seeing unfold?
Well, ISIS, it doesn't matter what name it's under, it's Islam. And Islam, the Iranian Islamic Republic, persecutes Christians. Naghmeh al-Adini, as you know and you've interviewed, her husband Saeed is in prison because of his Christian faith, and it's the Islamic Republic of Iran that is doing it to him. The Iranians are Shiites, but the Sunnis persecute the Christians. We see in Syria and Iraq where they cut the heads of Christians. They rape the women, take them as sex slaves, take the Yazidis, the minorities, and they do the same thing. They kill the men but take the women to have sex with them. And then after they have used them for a number of months, they're so distraught mentally and physically that then they may let them go or they may kill them. But this is Islam. And if you look at Saudi Arabia, again, it's Islam. There are no churches in Saudi Arabia. If you go into Saudi Arabia with a Bible, they've taken it away from you. If you try to preach or evangelize in Saudi Arabia, they will execute you. So this is Islam, and they persecute the church. They persecute Christians. And so I think we have a real problem in this country as it relates to immigration. I think we need to examine people very carefully before we allow them in, because we are creating a danger for ourselves.
The president's talking about increasing the number of immigrants. That concern you?
Well, I think I would love to see those immigrants be the minorities, the Christians, the Yazidis, and other minorities, the Syrians and so forth, that still live in Syria, that are minorities, and allow these Christians and minorities to come to this country would be great. But to allow more Muslims into this country at this time while we're still fighting against ISIS and we have these issues, I think it's creating a problem for us.
Europe is seeing an immigration crisis as well. Europe is seeing an immigration crisis.
No question, it's huge. And I understand, if I was a Syrian and my country was being blown apart, and I realized if I just got to the coast and got to a boat, and all I have to do is land on an island in Europe, and I'm there. And that's what they're doing. But unfortunately, some of these refugees are being drowned, not purposely, but I mean, they're drowning at sea, losing their life. I think the United States should be creating safe zones inside of Syria. They ought to be working with the Russians to create these safe zones that a person can flee, that there would be no militants, no armed groups in these areas, and they would be protected until there is a political settlement in the country. And we could easily accommodate all the refugees in these safe zones.
How would you grade our president thus far on handling that particular crisis?
Well, I would have to say that the crisis is a result of his failed policies. His generals told him not to leave Iraq, that we needed to keep troops in Iraq to keep the country stable. He didn't listen to them. And so al-Maliki, the president, who is a Shiite, as soon as the Americans pulled out, he began to marginalize the Sunnis. And when the Sunnis realized that they didn't have a seat at the table anymore, the Sunnis are the old Republican Guard. It's the Saddam Hussein's colonels and captains and lieutenants. Those guys were armed and they knew how to fight, and they developed ISIS, and they joined with the Syrians, who were already in a civil war with the Sunnis there, to create this Islamic State. And it's the president's, again, it's his failed policy.
We are all watching the Republican presidential primary unfold. Are there any specific issues you're watching for in that?
It's entertaining,
yeah.
But there's also some very good men and women. I think all of them are smart people. I think all of them have a vision for a better America than where we are today. I know not all of them, but most of them, and I think there's some real possibilities for new leadership there.
What's your prayer?
My prayer is that God will give us a man or a woman that loves God, that fears God, that will look to Him every day for guidance, that we would have that kind of president once again.
Defunding Planned Parenthood, we're seeing that battle play out. What are your thoughts? What do you want to see happen?
I think it would be a great mistake for the Republicans to shut down the government. That doesn't help anybody, and it will just backfire and it'll burn them. I think the Republicans, and I'm disappointed in the Democratic Party, and I'm disappointed in the Republican Party. And what happens is that both parties get into Washington and they forget who sent them there. And so these guys, unfortunately, have lost touch. And Planned Parenthood is murdering children in a mother's womb, selling the parts of these fetuses, of these babies, to people who pay by it. This is a wicked thing that they're doing, evil. And they need to be defunded. But I think we should not be shutting down the government to do this. The Republicans need to be more aggressive, and the moderate Democrats need us to come out from under the control of their party and stand for what's right.
Up next, Pan, the new Hugh Jackman movie about what happened before Peter Pan came to Neverland. We've got your family-friendly movie review after this. In today's family entertainment news, for more than 2,000 years, man has been searching for the final resting place of Noah's Ark. Though there have been many attempts, few have been able to fully explore the one place specifically noted in the Bible, Mount Ararat in eastern Turkey. Now, a movie-length documentary called Finding Noah, narrated by actor Gary Sinise, has been released. It is about a recent expedition for what would be one of the biggest archaeological finds in history. Director and producer Brent Baum told CBN News about the incredible feat of filming the explorers as they made their trek up the perilous summit at Mount Ararat.
The beautiful thing for me, and what I want audiences across America to see, is into the hearts of these very courageous men who risk their life in a very, very dangerous part of the world, and on top of that mountain, because of their faith.
You can find the entire interview about the Noah's Ark movie at cbnnews.com. Here, and if you're looking for some friendly entertainment options, you've come to the right place. For more, we turn to our Bob Wojciechowski Plugged In Online. So, Bob, let's start with Pan, the new take on the classic tale of Peter Pan. How was it?
Hugh Jackman is in this, and it is actually not the classic tale. It's kind of a prequel. How Peter Pan became Peter Pan. Set in World War II London, snatched by pirates, sent to Neverland, where we find a whole bunch of orphans that are mining pixie dust to keep Blackbeard eternally young. But there's a prophecy underfoot about a Messiah-type person, a chosen one who will kind of set the people free. Could that be Peter? Could he be Peter Pan? He's supposed to fly, but can he fly? From a family friendliness perspective, we gave this one a 4. That's a pretty decent score, but I do want to say that the body count was a bit high, and I would say that even more of a villain than Blackbeard himself are the nuns in the orphanage that sell Peter and the other orphan boys to the pirates of Neverland. They are pretty hideous nuns, and to work through those issues might be a bit tough for some people. But if they can work through it, this is a film I probably would have liked it at age 11. Didn't care so much at my current age.
Which you'll keep a secret. Well, there is a documentary called He Named Me Malala. It's about a girl many of us are familiar with in Afghanistan who was attacked by the Taliban. Tell us about it.
Boy, this documentary is very inspiring. I like this film. Setting aside her Muslim faith for a minute, let's just say she is a Mother Teresa-esque young woman because she strongly believed and believes that all girls should be educated. The Taliban believes that just boys should be educated, and she was shot in the head. I found this film to be, as I said, inspiring, as a great reminder that there are a lot of young girls, they say 60 million according to this documentary, who are not allowed the freedom to be educated as boys are in the world. And she is one tough cookie fighting for those girls to get educated.
Indeed, she is. One more to talk about. It is called The Walk. Set that one up for us.
You know, it actually came out last week, but it came out in IMAX theaters only. I actually saw it in IMAX in 3D glasses. And typically I say, don't upgrade the 3D glasses. They're just not worth it. You don't get that much out of it. I will say with this film, Robert Zemeckis did a great job with 3D. And if you are going to go see it, and I'm not saying go see it, but if you are, pay for the IMAX and pay for the upgrade. But it tells the true story of Philip Petit, a Frenchman who in 1974, along with a couple of his friends, snuck up into the World Trade Center, stretched a cable across the trade centers, and he was the first and only man to high wire walk from one tower to the other tower. Now, keep in mind, this is illegal. And even though it's rated PG, I would say there are quite a few profanities to navigate too. We came down on this one, giving it a 3 out of 5, which again, is it a thumbs up? Is it a thumbs down? It's neither. It's kind of that neutral, you know, read the longer review to check it out.
Bob, thank you.
You bet. See you, Ephraim.
It is time now for your Friday Faithful, and here's the thought to consider, especially when you're beating yourself up for that latest mistake or shortcoming like I was just moments ago. God's ways are higher than ours, and there is nothing we can do to fall short of His grace. Sure, you may have fallen yet again, but as long as you get up one more time than you've fallen, God is faithful to see you through. So don't quit and make this a fabulous Friday. That is going to do it now for CBN NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. And we hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.